Hi everyone, so my name is Jake Williams. I'm one of the health stars at Bupa. Um, Obviously today's talk we're going to be going through mindful eating, but just to give you a bit of background of myself first, been working for Bupa now for roughly about 2 years, and going from that, my background before then was doing university study in health, nutrition and fitness. So in that sense, yeah, got a good idea on health, but then also through doing mindful eating, and we touched on that a little bit. I've just done a bit of my own research really because I found it quite interesting. Um, but yeah, the talk should roughly take probably about 45 minutes to an hour. And like we said, we're going to touch on mindful eating first, and then also then look at mindfulness and then how we can try and put this into our day-to-day lives. So just starting off, so just to get us into the swing of things, I'd just like obviously the people on the call to, for 30 seconds, I just want you to close your eyes, bring yourself into this. So yeah, for obviously starting off, we're just going to have 30-second pause. It's just time to check in with your body, notice what's happening just around you, obviously your body, thoughts, any feelings. So yeah, for the next 30 seconds, I'm just going to just leave you to it. Brilliant. So my time's up there. Obviously come back in the room, open your eyes, and that's again just the start of the process. Obviously, just to get you what's happening. Like I mentioned, you might have been thinking that did that 30 seconds feel quite long? Did it feel quite quick? Were you thinking about, well, there's that email I've not replied to, or I need to do that when I get home. So again, it's just giving yourself that obviously period of time just to, in a sense, be aware of things going around you, but then also to just have that bit of time for yourself as well. Just again thinking around through a few things. But like I said, that's gonna make more sense when we go through the talk today. So you're probably thinking, Jake, well, what are we doing today? So we've got agenda here. So we're going to talk about what mindfulness is first, then what is mindful eating, how might mindful eating be a benefit to you. I'm then going to go through like a step-by-step eating exercise, and then bringing happiness back into your meals. So like I said, that might not be like obviously that mindfulness you might not be able to do every time, but yeah, we'll talk around that a bit more when we're going through. So what is mindfulness? And yeah, we've got John Kabat-Zinn, and I find his definition like really good. So mindfulness is not about getting anywhere else or changing anything. It's about being where you are and knowing it. And yeah, so you're probably thinking, well, what, where did mindfulness come from? Like, who's this John Kabat-Zinn? So yeah, I'll just give you a bit of background on that. So although like in modern practice of mindfulness, it's receiving like a lot of attention now, like we've seen obviously with mental health and things like that. But it's actually been practiced for more than 2,500 years. And this takes roots from like early teachers from the Buddha. So you probably think, well, Jake, where does then John Kabat-Zinn come into this? So the mindful movement in the West, which you may have heard of, was credited by Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, and he developed an 8-week mindfulness-based stress reduction program in the 70s. And the reason why he developed that was for patients who were suffering from chronic illnesses and pain to help them where the moderate medicines could not. He based his own practice on a type of Buddhist meditation called Vipassana, and that's a Pali word, and it translates in an insight to see clearly. And this meditation, in a sense, differs from other types of meditation because it's not about just focusing on one object or one thing and that concentration. You're not forcing your mind to, yeah, like I said, focus on one object or blocking everything else out. Instead, you're allowing your mind to rest mindfully on an object and acknowledging everything else that's around you, basically, before gently then bringing your attention back in, or like back to that object or attention. So if you were imagining when we did that 30 seconds before, and you were shutting your eyes, and say for example you were thinking about that email or what you need to do when you get home, but there might be a noise in the office, there might be a fan going, because I know at the minute it's really warm. Then yeah, it's being aware of those sounds, but obviously yeah, you're focusing on yourself and that thought process. So that, again, that's just trying to give you a bit of an example there. So, but we're thinking from that, but what can we be aware of? Well, there's four main areas of awareness, and there's the body. So you've got to think that's like your movement, your breathing and your posture, which again, we know obviously breathing, if we do like linking again into stress, I'm sure we've seen it before. If you haven't, I'll go through it now. But when we do get quite stressed, or like things are under pressure, our breathing can start increasing, where this is obviously again taking about maybe focusing on that, going in for a big deep breath and trying to relax it down that way. Sensations or feelings, so obviously we've got smell, touch and taste. Obviously like your mind, like your consciousness, so like thinking, decision making, planning, which again I'm going to focus on a bit more, how that links into mindful eating. And then obviously that the other side there, so that like mental aspect, so looking at emotional feeling, desire, cravings, anger, and obviously seeing if we can recognize any of these elements in that moment. So just thinking from that sense, yeah, it's from what John Kabat-Zinn said there, in that mindfulness is not about getting anywhere else or changing anything, about knowing where you are and knowing it. Like, it's exactly how I've just tried to go through there, and yeah, it's just in that sense, it's not like we said trying to focus on like one object and block everything out. It's just being aware of your surroundings, and yes, maybe listening to sounds, or if we're walking through somewhere and we're obviously that we've got that smell of, say, obviously a bakery or anything like that, it's obviously acknowledging that smell, but then still focusing on whatever you need to do. I'm sure we've done it before, where we've been in the office, and if you try and obviously that mindfulness of like focusing, right, I need to do X amount of tasks, and then we'll walk through, and then people have brought biscuits in, and if we're taking that like craving side of things there, you may have not wanted a biscuit before, so all of a sudden you've walked through and that craving starts. And it's like I said, being aware of those things, but again, not trying to, like I said, or like getting anywhere or changing anything. So it's just acknowledging, right there, I've got that craving, acknowledging why you've got that feeling, but then thinking, just obviously then if you wanted to, in that sense, then question yourself, do I actually need that? So if thinking of what is mindful eating, then I know I've just given you a bit of an insight into it, but like I said, it's being aware and conscious of the present moments while eating or making some food choices. So in that sense, you've got those physical sensations, like and like obviously some people, and I know I'm in that bracket as well, where we'll eat something, and like say you've been on holiday, and say you had a steak or whatnot, and it's delicious, it's like melting your mouth. It's that physical sensation that, oh, that was brilliant. And obviously that we're not trying to take that away, it's just acknowledging those feelings, where sometimes is a thought process into like what we're eating. So in where we're thinking that thought's right, well, I come in from work, and do you know what, I've not thought about it before, but I have a brew and I have a few biscuits with it. That's obviously a routine, like a thought process. And I said it's not saying what you're doing is wrong by any means. It's more just being more aware of what we are eating at certain times, and then that emotional feelings as well. So not just if we're upset, stressed, or if we're happy. Are we linking that in? So just for argument's sake, say we're upset, and then we're opening some crisps, or so having a piece of chocolate, like or opening a bottle of wine. Is that just to acknowledge, to go, right, do you know what, I actually, that this feeling actually links me into food, and the reason why I'm feeling like this, and I associate this feeling with like a food or drink. And like I said, it's like I've put below there, it's about increasing the awareness of how, why, what and how much you eat in an open, non-judgmental way. So it's more just to say, right, okay, I feel like this, and I usually go for X food or X drink. And that's what we're going to do today. Because again, some of you that are listening onto the call now might already do that, where others, you may have not thought about it. Like I know I used that example before of having a brew and having a few biscuits. I'd never thought about that before until we went through doing the mindfulness. So and mindful eating. So yeah, it's just picking things out like that. Okay. So just again, I'm just going to give you roughly about 30 seconds. So when we've just what we spoke around there, so thinking of that like physical sensations, things like that. So like I mentioned, just to reiterate, like senses, taste, texture, like temperature, feeling of hunger versus obviously like fullness, like thoughts, or like decision making, judgments, planning. Should I eat that? If I don't eat that now, I don't know when the next time I'll have it again. That emotional feeling, a bit of guilt, excitement, like upset, stressed, things like that, cravings. Do any of us feel that we eat mindfully? And like I said, you don't need to tell me, but yeah, just have a think between yourselves, and yeah, I'll be back. Okay, so I'll add a bit of a think there. Say if we do, we don't. A few people might be like, yeah, I do. Others might be like, no, not. I've never thought about it in the slightest. Not a problem at all. That's what the talk's here for today. And like I said, even it's just to make you more awareness. If this is something that you wanted to make a change, then fantastic. And again, we'll talk about that. Maybe setting in the sense if it's something smart and realistic, achievable. So looking at that smart goals side of things there for yourself, even if it was just to, like you said, eating. We usually eat 3 meals a day. I know some people do it differently, but in those 3 meals, even if it was just one of those meals out the 7 days in the week, if we could try and eat mindfully, then yeah, that's going to definitely help us. But again, you'll see the benefits when we move on. So again, eating mindfully here, I've got those 4 pictures that have just appeared on the screen, and so we've got obviously more 3 like social occasions. So it's, if you look into the middle at the top, it's more obviously like a family get together. We've got like obviously working at our desk, eating there, and then again we've got then 2 social gatherings at the bottom as well. So obviously going through them, just thinking in your head, do we feel that obviously in these photos they could eat mindfully? And like you said, it's just having a look first. What's your initial thoughts? But then going through these, we'll obviously have a talk. So again, I'm just going to give you roughly about 10 seconds, just to have a thinking on those 4 pictures if you do feel they eat mindfully. Okay, so we had a bit of a think there. Maybe made a few decisions. Yeah, they do. They don't. Okay, no worries. So if we start again with the picture in the middle at the top. So as I said, that family get together. Is that first thing? Do we feel they're eating mindfully or not? I think in that sense, like we mentioned about John Kabat-Zinn before, it's about being aware of what's around you and acknowledging it, but then focusing on obviously what's in front of you, so what you're eating. And I generally think, obviously, again, we're not trying to say that you can't socialise and you can't eat mindfully when you're out socialising, because you can. And I really feel that obviously that John Kabat-Zinn aspect is vital here. So like you said, you've got a bit more, it's like obviously a bit more help to like sharing, or just getting whatever from the middle of the table. And yeah, you're obviously going to speak to whoever the family member you're next to or across the table, but it's then not saying that you can't then take a moment to sit there eat your food, chew on it. What we try and encourage is, like I'm sure you've heard before, it's to chew things at least 20 times. You obviously that satisfaction, you're making sure, again, if you obviously being aware of what's around you, obviously the conversation, but still focusing on that food, and obviously getting through, obviously enjoying those flavors, obviously of how it tastes. I don't see there's an issue there at all. Yes, obviously I'm not saying it can't be difficult, because again, if you're in like a flow of conversation, um, but what I'd just try and suggest there is if you're obviously having a mouthful, or obviously when someone else is talking, there's no harm in you, yes, acknowledging that obviously you're having a conversation, but just enjoying that food at that present moment. Where then, in contrast, when we go to the top right, obviously eating at the desk, you can tell that gentleman's focus is primarily on a computer screen, and I can honestly put my hand up and say that that's something that I know that we do. Obviously, again, you're thinking, oh, they've got that, like when we was on about that 30 seconds before, I've got that wee email to send, I've got this to do, I've got that to do. And again, it's trying to encourage that, yes, we obviously we get allocated lunch breaks and breaks to try and get away from our desk, changing that environment that we're in. But again, obviously it can be difficult, and we know it's difficult, and and we're going to talk around that with those SMART goals. But yeah, obviously going back into that mindful eating, no, he wouldn't be, like you say, he's not even looking at his food, focusing on his food. He's just putting obviously the sandwich in his mouth, and he's more focusing on obviously whatever it's reading, or reading an email or an article or whatnot. Obviously we don't know. But yeah, it'd be that aspect that he's not then enjoying his food because his mind's obviously elsewhere. So going into the bottom left photo, obviously all saying cheers. Again, I'd say this is more in the sense of with the family gathering that, yes, it's acknowledging obviously when people are talking round, obviously group of friends, you're having a meal, and enjoying your food. Like you said, you're at a nice restaurant. But yeah, obviously that it is still a difficult situation. Again, acknowledging, yeah, the sound's going all around me because there's not just you in the room, and there'll be other tables. But then there's obviously that place of, right, well, I'm having this fish, there's this salad, this steak, which not. And when you are putting that in your mouth, just to acknowledge it. If like for me, I always shut my eyes, and and then I'll just chew it that way to try and enjoy it. But again, like I said, if you're full flow in a conversation, that might not be an area that you can eat mindfully. But again, it's thinking of that thought process. Is that then something then we could do? And then on the last but no means least, on the bottom right hand side, we've got that where we've got obviously a few people having a bit of a salad, obviously having a pizza, and things like that. So and yet again, do you think that's something we could eat mindful? Like, we don't obviously know what in this picture those girls may be looking at, but let's just say in that context that they're watching the telly, they're sat on the sofa, and they're focused on the telly. That in that sense, do we feel they're eating mindfully? Then probably not. Just because in that sense, you got to think your focus is predominantly on the telly, and it's just that action of, wow, yeah, I've finished chewing, and that automatic reaction is, right, I'm going to put more in my mouth. So then you got to think your attention is more on the telly about what's going on say Loose Women, or is the football on, or is the chase on, or whatnot, and or it could be Corrie as well. And yeah, it's just that focus is elsewhere, so there's not in that enjoyment with the food. Where again, another example could be, do you eat mindfully when we're at the cinema? I can hand on heart say clearly I don't, because you obviously that action of just putting popcorn in when you're finished, you're predominantly focusing on the obviously the film that's on in front of you. Like I said, just looking at that there, it's just to give us a bit more thought, just thinking, is there any areas that we could think mindfully? And I know, like we mentioned before, if we're having usually 3 meals a day, obviously in that 7 days a week, is the one area there, if we weren't eating mindfully, that we could start doing that? So just reflecting on this, and again, I'm going to read through these. Don't have to obviously shout out and say, yeah, that's what I do, or oh no, don't do that. Just acknowledging them. So do you continue to eat when you're full? Do you eat when you're not hungry? So yeah, we've already mentioned that, perhaps out of boredom or in response to your own emotions. Like I know for myself, boredom can be one, but also like in emotions, if I'm quite stressed or if I am upset, I like I said, I know I've linked that into chocolate myself, and it's trying obviously then go, like we said, it's a non-judgmental way. It's more just going, all right, okay. So I acknowledge that feeling with that emotion, and that food with that emotion. Um, and if that then was something that you wanted to change, then you're already aware of obviously that response, aren't you? So then it's just trying to action that a little bit more. So to go, oh, okay, right, well, what would be like a healthy option, or what would I feel satisfied with in that emotion? To if I was to have some food there. Do you multitask when you eat? So there we go. So working at your desk, watching the TV, browsing the internet while you eat. Obviously, mobile phones, tablets, TVs. I know in Bupa Place we've got a TV in our breakout area. Obviously, yeah. Nowadays, obviously everyone's on the phone, Instagram, all social media, looking at the news, reading a book, whatnot. And again, it's taking your mind off your food because you're predominantly more focused on, right, I'm just going to eat my sandwich or I'm going to have my salad, but then I'm looking at what's going on elsewhere. So again, you're multitasking, you're taking your mind out elsewhere, like I mentioned before. Do you play with your food? Like a few people say, no, Jake, I don't. But again, that's something that people do. And yeah, and obviously not really eating much and then snacking shortly after your meal. Do you feel inclined to eat everything that's on your plate? Which I know there's been more studies recently, in the sense of when you like, obviously it's more from when children and being brought up that way that you couldn't leave the table till you'd finish your meal. So then you feel obliged to eat everything that's on your plate. And do you reach for your next bite before you finish what's in your mouth? So again, they're just obviously those reflections there, the six. I said anything I've said there, and maybe a few nod of the heads, maybe like, okay, yeah, yeah. And like I said, it's just to maybe have that thought, just think, okay, like, do I do any of these, or do I do I respond to from how I'm feeling and associate that with a piece of like some food or whatnot, and this is what the main aspect of this talk is all around. So, how might mindful eating be a benefit to you? So, like we said, develop a healthy and conscious relationship with food. So then you're like we've reiterated, or I've reiterated quite a few times, that you acknowledge, right, I feel like this. I've got that physical sensation from that food. It makes me want more. I've got that thought processing. Do I, don't I? Oh, I don't usually have a chocolate bar. I'm going to have it now. Um, just to increase your enjoyment in food. So like I mentioned around those, just like in that sense, it's being aware of what's around you. Just going back to that quote from Dr. John Kabat-Zinn, but it still means you can enjoy the food that's in front of you. So chewing the food for 20 times. Again, just like I said, I shut my eyes, and it just increases those like flavors that you may have not felt before, because like you said, you've been distracted with other things around you, say looking at the telly, looking at your phone, and and you've not been getting the full enjoyment there out and the full flavors out of your food. So stop eating unnecessary calories. Well, for me, that can be an example could be if the football's on, and say I've put a chocolate bar. I thought, no, do you know what? I'm gonna have that. I'm gonna put a chocolate bar down. I'm gonna put a pack of biscuits down. I'm only gonna have a couple, and then that couple becomes that packet. So if it was like chocolate buttons or bourbons, custard creams, because you're focused predominantly on the telly. So with me, big football fan, I'm watching it there, and I see my hands just going down, and without knowing it, then all of a sudden I put my hand on that packet. I'm thinking, oh no, I've eaten a lot. Well, that's that unnecessary calories there. So again, just from a personal aspect, what I did to try and change that, and again, this it may help yourself. I then would put the biscuits in just a small bowl, so I knew I had three. And again, then yes, I'm trying to eat that food mindfully, whilst again being aware that obviously the football's on and trying to enjoy my biscuit, but then at the same time if that was to happen and I I was to go out of that mindful eating aspect, I've limited that unnecessary calories to say 3 or 4 biscuits maximum, where before it would have been the whole packet. So again, just thinking of those small steps to try and put that in place. Again, that then links into if we're having unnecessary calories, if we then start making changes there, we may even lose some excess weight and maintain a healthy weight. Because the way I always try and talk around your weight is you think of yourself as a set of scales, and you've got on one side of those set of scales, you've got your food and drinks and the amount of calories you're consuming each day, compared to your total energy expenditure, which would be just your body burning off X amount of calories in your day to day, and then any extra exercise as well. If your then weight is still maintaining, that just means you're burning off as many calories as you're putting in. Where if then you thought, well, do you know what? I could start doing that, like a bit more mindful eating, being aware. If it was, say, for the packet of biscuits or chocolate, and you thought, right, I'm going to either portion it out, or I'm just going to try and swap that out for like a healthier alternative. Yes, you might think, oh, Jake, it's only one little thing, but you think if that one little thing you do 3 or 4 times a week and you make those changes, it's great. Like, just for an example, bourbon biscuits roughly about 60-70 calories. Say you wanted to change from that to say like a healthier alternative. Say we're having 4, there's, let's say, 60, so we've got 60, 120, 180, then 240. So there's 240 calories there in those 4 bourbon biscuits. Where if, say, again, might not be everyone's cup of tea, but if we converted that to, say, a banana or an apple, you're getting the natural sugar there from that fructose. That full apple or banana roughly is about, between 60 to 80 calories. And if that sense, you'd only have one, where we may have had 4 biscuits. So can you see that, like I said, just adding that difference in calories? And if that was 3 to 4 times a week, or even it was just once a week, you're going to see a difference over the week, over the months. And again, might see that weight loss there. Like I said, identifying eating habits and patterns you might want to change. We've just focused on that one. And then gain control over what you eat and why you eat it. That's the main one. And that's just out of anything from the talk today. It'd be going, I said, why I'm eating it, oh, that's why, and understanding that process a little bit more. So we've got the appetite pendulum here, and I find this quite interesting, obviously from the appetite doctor. And again, just to throw in a few more things out there you may find beneficial to you. So we've got obviously from -5 all the way to +5. But like you can see in the font color there, that we ideally want you to try and stay in that +3 to -3 and not go any further. So if we just start in the middle at that neutral, so that means we're quite satisfied, in the sense we're not hungry. We're just in that, like we may have eaten something a few hours ago, and we're quite comfortable. We're not feeling any hunger there. We're quite satisfied in what we've had, and just to carry on doing our day. Where if we go to the plus side first, so a +1, so not sure, probably not hungry, I try and link that into, is that if we were thinking of that, being in more control of what we're eating, or would we be a +1? Like I said, if we walk back to my desk at work and we've seen that obviously people got the biscuits out or a cake, could that be, if we've been happy before, like I said, just getting on with our day, could that just be a craving kicking in that, oh, I could have that? Well, actually, am I a +1? Am I probably not hungry? I don't really need it. Again, that could be in that aspect there. Then a +2, +3, so nearly full, just full. That's where if you were to have, like, obviously your lunchtime, your evening meal, again, this is trying to think of that unnecessary calories. It might be what you would like to be. I know some people say I'd like to be a +3 or I'd like to be a +2. And what I'd try and say there is, again, it's every individual's own preference, but it's trying not to hit that +4, +5, where I know we've all done it before, where we've seen something that we like, it's really nice, we don't want to stop eating it, and then we're either +4, +5, where we're just really uncomfortably full, and or too, like, obviously eating too much. Where again, trying to be that more mindful, thinking, right, well, I'm having that meal was really nice, but yeah, I'm a +3. I'm really satisfied with that. I don't need anything else, in the sense of, like, if we finished our meal and think, oh, I could murder a dessert now, I really want one. It's just giving that bit of thought process, like we said, usually giving yourself 20 minutes to identify if you are full and satisfied, but just thinking to yourself, am I a +2, +3? Again, if you prefer to be like just full, if you're a +2 and you wanted to have a dessert, but you thought, oh, I couldn't have a full one, is it possible in sharing and get to that +3? But again, we wouldn't want to go any further than that. Well, then if we go on the other side, so the minuses, so -1, not sure, probably a bit hungry, then 2, slightly hungry, 3, definitely hungry, 4, very hungry, and 5, extremely hungry. Well, again, we wouldn't want you to get to those aspects, especially if, say, we were shopping, like I'm sure you've heard research, or if not, like, we try and say not to shop when you're hungry, because obviously we're a lot more likely just to get something quick and easy. So in the sense of, like, if we are trying to eat healthier, like, obviously quick, like a chocolate bar, biscuits, things like that, crisps. So again, it's just acknowledging that and thinking, if you are -1, not sure, probably a bit hungry, that might be where, if it's just in the day, is there like a healthy snack that we might want to have? If we're going that -1 to -2, where we think, oh, slight bit peckish here, but, like, obviously with myself, I think, oh, I can't really have anything properly till 12 o'clock. So can I have a piece of fruit, or can I have a small handful of nuts? Again, just trying to give you a few ideas. So then from there, if we're slightly hungry, to then going into 3, definitely hungry, that's where it's, again, if we are, I know it's easier said than done, because we think in working life, obviously personal life at home, we can be doing all other bits and pieces. But at the same point, if we can start acknowledging that, well, you know what, I am a -3, I'm definitely hungry now. Is that a bit where we can go, right? Or actually, do you know what, I'm gonna take my lunch now, or I'm gonna start, like, if we're a -2, we're cooking at home, like, I'm slightly hungry. Well, I'm gonna start prepping food now, because by the time I've made it, I'm definitely going to be a -3. I'm going to be definitely hungry, and I can have something to eat. So it's, again, I'm just trying to give you a few examples where you might find this appetite pendulum quite good for yourself, just thinking, where am I on that scale? So, like we talked about before, obviously mindful eating can help you heal your, obviously, relationship with food, and put a focus on, like, practical, holistic ways to enhance your enhance your health. So we've already spoke about nutrition. Like we said, in that sense, if we're eating healthier items, we're having more vitamins and minerals. Again, I know it's got a dumbbell there in the activity sign, but activity, and I'm a firm believer in this, it's what you feel is achievable to you. It doesn't have to be going to the gym. And that's what I want you to take that out of your mind when you see activity. That could be going for a walk. That could be then going for a jog outside, could be going for a bike ride, whichever you like. Like we mentioned about those set of scales before, if weight loss was an area for you, and like we said, we are eating quite well, then is it just maybe trying to up that exercise a little bit more? So again, what they think of something called a talk test, if we're doing more moderate exercise, which would say, for example, it was me and my colleague Sophie, and we were going for like a brisk walk, but we were able to carry on a conversation, that'd be classed like we are now. Then that'd be classed as moderate exercise, which, again, government guidelines, we want you to have that at least 150 minutes per week. So it's about half an hour, 5 times a week that you can break down. But if you were thinking, right, well, what else could I do there? Well, that talk test is something called vigorous exercise. So again, this obviously can vary between each individual, and that'd be where we try and encourage to have if it wasn't moderate, so say 75 minutes of vigorous exercise. So that's where if I was doing, it'd be more than going for a bit of maybe of a jog, a bit of a run with Sophie, where I wouldn't be able to carry on a conversation. I would be more focused on obviously doing my run and making sure I get whatever distance or time, or if you're using a monitoring tool like a Fitbit or anything, or an app or whatever for your exercise there. So it's just to give you a bit more of an idea. The fact if then we're eating well, and again, if we are, and then we do increase our exercise levels or change it up or whatnot, usually then we do sleep better because, like I said, if we're eating more unhealthier foods, we produce a chemical in our brain called dopamine that makes us feel a bit more lethargic. In that sense, where if we're exercising, we're eating well, you get that buzz, don't you? That overall feeling. You know what? I've ate really well today, and I'm feeling better. And that then does help in your overall sleep. Like for general adults, we try and encourage like 7 to 9 hours. Again, I know if people have children, then and there's other environmental factors that can be difficult. But again, it's maybe just looking at is that something we could improve by making these changes here. And then again, we've already spoke about it, that mindfulness. So just even if I said it was one meal in one meal in the 7 days in a week, that we could do that, just to get that bit more enjoyment out of your food there as well. Try and reduce the calories. Try and even just like I said, gain a bit more control. Like why do I associate that food with that emotion? That's going to be fantastic. And again, it just obviously all links into it, trying to obviously improve your overall health and well-being. So I'm just going to do a mindful eating exercise with you now, and like I said, I'm gonna talk it through from the very basics. Um, like I said, if you had like a raisin sultana, that's what we'd usually use for the mindful eating exercise. Like I said, but you can use it for anything. Like I sometimes use a Lindor chocolate as well. Get a bit, like I said, you can use it for anything, but like this is what you can use in your day-to-day aspects here. So if you were to obviously do that, try this mindful eating, like you said, once, one meal. So what I want you to do, so if obviously that food is in front of you, I want you to pick up your raisin and place it into the palm of your hand with your eyes still closed. So yeah, if you can just close your eyes, just feel it in your hand. Notice the weight of it. Is it warm? Is it cool? Now open your eyes and look at the raisin or sultana or whatever food it is. Notice the shape, the colours, the texture. Imagine that this is the first time you've ever seen a raisin, and what else do you notice? Touch the raisin with your fingers and feel the texture. Look at the different sides of the raisin and notice any place that the light falls or any shadows. If your mind starts to wander and think about other things, that's all right. Don't worry about it. Like we said, Jon Kabat-Zinn, it's just that notice the thoughts and bring your attention back to that raisin. Lift the raisin to your nose and smell it. Slowly breathe in several times and focus on the different smells. Does smelling this raisin trigger anything else in your body? So like we mentioned about any thoughts, any feelings, anything like that. Is your mouth watering? Do you have any desires or impatience? You might be thinking, Jake, just come on, I want to have this. Are you having any thoughts? Yep. So just thinking, it's taking time now. Or maybe you don't like the smell. Do you feel yourself rejecting the raisin? However you feel, notice it. Bring your attention back to smelling the raisin. Now slowly take a small bite, but don't chew it or swallow it. You can have your eyes open or closed, it's entirely up to you. While that small bit of raisin's in your mouth, notice the feeling and the taste of the raisin. How does it feel on your tongue? Notice the taste and the sensations. Where can you feel it in your mouth? What taste are you experiencing? Now move that piece of the raisin around in your mouth. Try to notice the movement where you feel, oh sorry, the moment where you feel like you want to swallow. Now slowly swallow the raisin, focusing on the sensations. Notice any lingering tastes or sensations, any thoughts, any feelings. Do you just want to shove the rest in your mouth? Has it made you more hungry? And to finish the rest of the raisin in the same way, if you, like you said, if your mind wanders, that's okay. Just bring yourself back into the sensation of the raisin, the feeling in your mouth from the raisin. Chew slowly and finish the raisin. So we finished the raisin now, so close your eyes once more if you've not already. Feel the weight in your chair and bring your attention back to your breath. Just notice the rising and falling of your abdomen and any thoughts, feelings that arise. Okay, so just a few questions that you could ask yourselves here. So, how is this different from your normal way of eating? Did you notice anything during the exercise? And like just thinking, was there any thoughts? Do you feel you could put that into like your own aspect there? Like, yeah, obviously there may be a few times where you think, Jake, well, I can't pick it up and I can't do this. Well, that's like I said, that it's just trying to put it into practice. But at the same time, is that not something where you could move the food around your mouth and, like you said, just take your time, chew it? Like you said, there was no rush, and just see if there's any extra experiences, any other flavors that you might find, or when you had that raisin, where you just wanted to finish off, did obviously just eating that raisin sultana, did you feel anything different? So again, that's just a mindful eating exercise for you there. So just coming to the end now, so bring happiness back to your meals. So I've got here like try 4 steps, obviously, to do that. So wait for hunger. So again, looking at that appetite pendulum. Obviously, foods taste better when we're hungry, but we don't want to wait too long. So that that -4, -5. We don't want to get to that like really hungry side of things. We want to just be acknowledge that and see if we can obviously try and put something more in place there. So be mindful. So like I mentioned about the 5 senses, so sight, touch, smell, sound, and taste, and to get the most from that experience. Like you said, so if we're walking past, say, McDonald's, Subway, Chippy, anything like that, and you go, there's that smell, or you just, and there's that obviously that sort of craving that comes in there. Is that then something that we were doing on a weekly or monthly basis before? Just being, like I said, being a bit more mindful and gaining that control. Right, well, just from having that smell, that's the reason why that triggers it for me, and that's what I'm just trying to get across. So think what will taste good and make you feel good, and then go for that. Well, like we mentioned before about that holistic ways, it might be something you just think, well, Jake, I do enjoy having a bit of chocolate, bit of crisp. We're all human. We're going to do that. That's fine. It's just then, can you not still eat that chocolate mindfully? Can we not just take our time with that, get that bit more enjoyment out of it? From one of the talks I've done before, I used the chocolate, and one of the ladies then taking her time with it realised that she found the chocolate quite the taste overpowering, and she changed, she alternated. But again, they're just another few ideas for you, just by trying it and eating intentionally. So you want to feel good now and later, which means watching out for any uncomfortable fullness. So like we mentioned before about being that +4, +5 on the appetite pendulum, but then also is that by, if we're watching the telly, where we maybe feel quite full sometimes later on because we've not been mindful eating, is that then something we can just, like you said, be a bit more aware of? And just highlighting that could be by making a diary, so a mindful eating diary. So like put there, where are you in the appetite pendulum? You could just note that down. What thoughts are you having when you linking that response into food? What have you chosen to eat? And you could note that down. It doesn't have to be in a diary. It could be on your phone. So it could be on your notes on your phone, or whatever you feel comfortable with. But again, it's just to acknowledge that, obviously, that why that response, and like I said in a nutshell, that mindful eating. So just got a few further resources. So we've got two apps there called Headspace and Calm. So they're both free to download, but they sometimes then, oh well, say sometimes, or like after you can download them for free. They have obviously a free aspect on the app, but then they can ask you to purchase in like obviously the full membership or full part of the app. But yeah, so just to give you a bit of info with the Headspace, that gives you 10 free hints and tips. So it is linked into mindful eating, looking into stress, anxiety, depression, obviously why we feel in certain ways and trying to overcome that. Where obviously the Calm app's more or less quite similar, but then I know that, like, having downloaded that myself, on the free app you've got a podcast from Stephen Fry. So again, it's just trying to, like you said, if you are stressed and you were thinking, well, Jake, I am stressed and I associate it with chocolate, again, just using myself, or like you said, boredom, can we try and improve our, like obviously reduce those stress levels and improve that? And you said a bit of resilience. If we are, that stress, is there something we can like obviously use to help improve that? And I find the podcast really helpful. And just thinking, if you were quite interested from the talk and you thought, oh, I'd like to know a little bit more, I've put some links down at the bottom. So we've got a Bupa mindfulness blog, which, to be fair, some of the stuff I've spoke around today is on that blog. And then we've got a few just like mindful eating as well, which is I've put in a bit in this talk, just so you can have a look at. So, like I said, you are going to have access to this PowerPoint. So yeah, you can obviously look through those obviously the further resources and see if you find them useful. So if you do have any questions, you can please ask now. Otherwise, there's myself and my colleague Ella, who obviously are both the health stars for around Bupa and do the presentations. Like I said, you've got our email there. So jake.williams@bupa.com and ella.houghton@bupa.com. If you just send us an email, if you had any questions or queries, and we can get right back to you. So just thinking, as we haven't, there's no questions, that's not a problem at all. What I'd like to just say is thank you very much for attending the call today, and I really hope you found this beneficial. Like I said, any questions, feel free to email us in. But otherwise, I just want to wish you having a lovely afternoon and a great weekend. So thank you very much for obviously attending the call.